Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're so glad that you could make the time to be here. While we let everybody settle in, feel free to let us know in the chat where you're joining us from today. We're going to launch a poll just to get started and get your thoughts. We want to know, in terms of your email marketing frequency, how often do you currently email your audience? Perhaps you haven't even started email marketing at this point and you're just joining us fresh today. Or perhaps you send one monthly or could be weekly, or perhaps you're more than once a week. Yeah, we're curious. We're excited to see the results here. So let us know. And from what I'm seeing in the results here is that there's a lot of people that haven't started email marketing yet. So no problem. I think we're going to cover it right from the basics today through to some advanced techniques to help you be more efficient with your email marketing programming. So yeah, that's great to see. Lots of you also send emails out monthly. So yeah, really interesting. Thanks for sharing. Okay, well, moving forward, I want to start us off with a land acknowledgement today. BusinessLink acknowledges and respects that we are on traditional land, meeting grounds, territories, gathering places, and traveling routes of Treaty 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, and the home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the lands of those who have come before us, reside here now, and in the future. I'd like to go through a few housekeeping items with everyone today. Just below, you will see a button for the Q&A. This is where you can add your questions into the box so nothing gets missed. We do have the chat as well, but only the host and our panelists today will be able to see the chat. So we can certainly see anything that you're writing in there, but if you want to put something out to the group and have some questions, use that Q&A button. And the session is being recorded today, so it'll be available on YouTube afterwards. And captions are available. You can turn those on using the button, the CC button on Zoom. And yeah, with that being said, I would like to welcome you to Email Marketing 101. We're going to leverage your existing client lists in this session. You're going to learn about marketing funnels, tools, how to craft emails that will convert in this hands-on webinar. So with that, I should introduce myself. I'm Amy Thompson, the Director of Marketing and Communications here at BusinessLink. We are a government-funded nonprofit that provides business advice across Alberta. We have a number of free programs and services, from market research to digital marketing to guiding you through a business launch program. So if you want to learn more about us, go to our website, businesslink.ca. Yeah, and with that, I would like to introduce our speakers today. We have Ryan Blaze and Megan Jobson from 910. 910 Inc. is a passionate and dedicated team of lifelong learners. They're on a mission to help Alberta small businesses and entrepreneurs develop their brands, establish their online presence, and become self-sufficient in activating their digital marketing strategies. So with that, I'll turn things over to Ryan and Megan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Amy, Linda, thank you for the intro, and so great working with the BusinessLink team. We've been doing this for a while. There's obviously an appetite for our small medium businesses within the province and the region to learn all about this digital marketing stuff so that you can empower yourself as a small business owner, get in the trenches and effectively manage your website or your social media or your search engine optimization, develop good content, and or reach towards email marketing. So today's focus is going to be on email marketing. You'll see there's a lot of overlap with email marketing and blogging and content creation and all of that. So Megan's going to lead us through that as she normally does. And if you've attended some of our other sessions, please say hi and mention that in the chat. As we go, I will be monitoring the chat, and if there's any specific questions you would like for us to address, please put that in the Q&A, and so you'll see those options down below as well. So we are a mean and lean team. We are physically located here in Grand Prairie for our core team, but we have remote team members. Megan is with us full time, but she lives in just outside of Edmonton as well. So we are a modern company that work remotely as well. And we predominantly work with small, medium businesses. And Amy did a great job of talking about our mission. And You can read it here, and she summarized it perfectly. Our goal is to empower small, medium businesses, predominantly in the province, so you can establish your brand, get online, and start activating your digital marketing. And so email marketing is a really strong aspect of that. And so through our agency, there's lots of stuff we support small, medium businesses with. A foundational level is creating the brand. So that's more than just the logo and your visual branding. It's understanding who you are and who your target audience is. It's akin to building that business plan as well. We also do a lot of graphic design and print, websites all day long, including e-commerce, and a lot of marketing strategy. And ultimately, if you're working with us and you're wanting to take some of these activities in-house, we provide you both the training and the software or the tools that you're going to need to activate that. So Megan will talk a little bit about that today, including how to wrangle all of that together so you can do effective email marketing as well. So with that, Megan, I hand it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, great introduction to us and to kind of our core ideologies surrounding marketing, and how our goals here are really to empower you with the knowledge to be able to activate these things on your own as well. So my first question to all of you is, why is email marketing important? There's a lot of conversation around email marketing, especially in small businesses. Is it really effective? Does it actually make a difference? Does it move the needle? Is it something that people are actually looking for? There's rules around email marketing legislation. So how do we stay within those things? And very often, email marketing tends to be overwhelming, more overwhelming than not, especially if you're just starting out. It is one of the earliest forms of digital marketing, and it's also one of the longest lasting. The digital platforms tend to move very, very quickly and change and evolve, but email marketing has kind of remained one of the constants within the digital marketing space. So why is email marketing important? Email marketing is a really great, effective way to get into people's direct line of sight. So in marketing, there's kind of two sides. There's inbound and outbound. There's the traditional casting a super wide net, trying to get as many people into your circle as possible. And then there is the direct marketing, so the digital marketing side of things, where you're trying to meet people where they are, the conversations with a smaller group of people, but they tend to be more effective. Email marketing is part of that, right? Because we're landing directly in somebody's inbox. The conversations around email marketing tend to be kind of skeptical, because a lot of people have the experience of, well, they just go into the spam folder, right? People just filter through their emails and chuck them into the trash. And while that is partially true, there's a lot more nuance in that. It comes down to things like frequency and offers, and how effective your messaging is, and how you're able to connect with people on that level. So Ryan, from your standpoint, why do you feel like email marketing is so important?
You just nailed it. I think there's a perception out there, even for me, one, that email marketing can be overwhelming. I just put that note in there. And then it's kind of spammy. And some email marketing is spam. My inbox every day I come to work, I have a ton of email marketing, stuff I've opted into and stuff that I have not. So some of these players are not following canned spam rules. But there's a lot of really great content that I get from email marketing that I appreciate. And so for anyone who's considering email marketing, it's for sure a bad idea if you're not going to be providing valuable content in a timely manner, and something that is well matched for your target audience, and even understanding who your target audience is. So, for me, I think email marketing is one of those things where it may or may not be a fit for you, depending on the approach you're going to take. And I guess that could be said, to be true for anything, including social media and search and whatnot. So I don't know if I answered your question specifically, but I just wanted to share that it can be overwhelming, and you can certainly implement it in a way that's not going to work for you. So let's try to avoid both of those.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that leads us to the first part of the conversation, which kind of fundamentally, what is email marketing? What are we trying to achieve? One is touch points, right? We're trying to increase the number of places that we are able to access our audience, right? We're wanting to increase the number of places where we are reaching those people. Then there's the direct access, right? If you look at something like a billboard, you don't have direct access to your audience. That is completely dependent on if the right person for your services happens to be driving down that particular road at that particular time, right? There's a lot of variables involved. With things like email marketing, you have direct access to your audience who have, if you're doing this legitimately and following the rules, who will have already opted in to hear your messaging. So that's an important thing to consider. The third part of it is lead nurture. So this brings us into something called the marketing funnel, which some of you might be familiar with. But lead nurture is essentially when somebody understands who you are, have made a decision to participate in your marketing circles, and are then becoming a little bit more familiar and entering the consideration phase. So the marketing funnel here, this is how it breaks down, where we've got awareness, the top of the funnel. This is where we are going to reach the most amount of people, right? Casting our wide net per se, or finding people on social media, having people sign up for your email list through trade shows and things like that, your opt-in forms on your website. So the awareness is somebody discovers who you are. And then there's an action. So the funnel is broken up into sections based on how the audience, how your consumers are behaving, the decisions that they're making, the actions that they're taking. So between awareness and consideration, there's this little section called opt-in. That means that they have made the decision to opt into your messaging. So in this case, so email marketing, it would be like filling out the form on the website for the email newsletter, or sign up to receive a 10% discount. I don't know if you've ever gone onto an e-commerce website and had that little pop-up. That's what that is. That's an opt-in, right? Something that another language term that you'll see for an opt-in is something called a lead magnet. So something that you offer as the provider to your consumer to get them to opt in, so that you can get their contact information. There's kind of a direct relationship between the value that the consumer is receiving in that lead magnet and the amount of information that they're willing to offer. Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to introduce the term, you might touch on a paywall, the idea that, people are used to when I pay, I receive something. And sometimes the paywall, the payment can not be money, but it can be someone surrendering or voluntarily giving their email address, because then you're going to add them to your email distribution list, and then you're going to provide something of value, that lead magnet that Megan just spoke about, and so many great examples of that.
Exactly. So that's such a great comment there, because a lot of people that I've worked with over the years have said, well, we don't sell a product, or we're not for profit, or we're not able to offer a discount. So how can we manage these kind of conversion terminology, the lead magnet, if we aren't able to offer these traditional things? Well, it's not necessarily always about that. It's about what you can offer them, right? There is always going to be an exchange there. And so depending on what you're offering, you're able to ask for more information. If you're offering, a free trial in the course or the software that you're providing, then you're able to access a little bit more information than if you are offering maybe a one-page blog post that they're able to access a little bit more easily. So consider that when you're building out your strategy, your marketing strategy, is how much information or how many resources are you going to be putting into these lead magnets so that you can get that information in return. So that leads us then into the next part, which is consideration. Consideration is them deciding whether or not you are a good fit for them, and part of it is also you deciding if they are a good fit for you. If you are a business-to-business consumer structure, you will much more often find yourself discussing whether or not this client is a good fit for you, or whatever the case is. The consideration phase goes both ways. And the reason being is because you want to make sure that your customers are always going to be happy when they leave your doors or when they leave your service, right? And they're not going to have that super fantastic experience if they're not the right person for your service, and if you're not the right person for what their needs are. So the consideration phase is really, really important. And that's why we have the nurture as part of that consideration phase. So this is where your email marketing lists come into play, where you are able to send, if somebody opts in for a particular offer, you're able to manage some of that communications back and forth, showcasing a little bit more about what you have to offer to make sure that you align with that person. The consideration is a very key part because it's going to drastically reduce the email list itself, right? Or the pool of applicants that are going to be moving on to the next phase, the conversion phase, right? And we want that. We want that because that's weeding out all of the people that aren't interested in what we have to offer, right? So we've got the consideration phase, and then we have the conversion phase. So the action between the consideration and the conversion is going to be that the consumer is ready to make or complete the funnel, make the next step, purchase, sign up, whatever that end goal is for you. So that's kind of the big change there. So this is where your marketing team would typically pass off to your sales team, for example. This is where you would maybe be sending out your quotes or your estimates or additional discounts, whatever that looks like for you. So the funnel is a funnel. We are casting a wide net and bringing in a smaller number of conversions. That's the way that it always is going to work. But the key thing that we are looking at here is the opt-in, so what you can offer, and the lead nurture, so how you're going to bring people throughout their customer journey. So one key thing to consider when it comes to email marketing is going to be your brand. Part of any communications that you send out is going to be your brand voice, your message, how you are approaching that. The other key part is your audience, right? It's not going to be an effective email marketing funnel if you don't understand who your audience is, if you're not able to offer them what they need. One conversation that I like to have very often is about customer desires and psychology behind how people make purchasing decisions. And part of that is us understanding that there's kind of core fundamental human behaviors that happen, and which ones our audience are going to be acting on is really key and very important. So it's really important for us to understand who our audience is and what their needs are, what their pain points are, so that we can address them, and who we are in our brand voice and our message and how we're coming across in order to effectively nurture them through that funnel. So all of these things are really important. The third part of that is going to be the visual representation. Email is as much about the visual put together, where your buttons are, how your banners look, the colors that are involved in that, as it is about the actual text itself. Most people are skimming through. We are very visual creatures, human beings, and we like to see flashes of color and bold things, and we are very simple-minded. We like to push buttons, lots of buttons. So those are all part of the visual expression and making sure that aligns with who you are and who your audience wants to see. Ryan, did you want to jump in here and just talk a little bit about brand and how it impacts the messaging around your email marketing?
Yeah, and then maybe we'll jump to some questions from Alana and Shelley as well. So I consider brand a foundational sort of piece of the puzzle. You saw on the earlier screen, it was in the top left, meaning that's where you start. When you really establish your brand strategy, you really get clear on who you are and who your target audience is, what is the messaging, what are the products and service you offer, and what is really important when you're doing a brand strategy is one of the things that comes out of that is you segment your audience. And this is really important because you may have some products or services that are well suited for this audience, and this product and services that are well suited for this different audience. So when you think about segmenting your target audience across your business lines, products or services, you realize very quickly that is directly relevant to creating your email lists that Megan has been referencing. So you may have great content, but you're sending it to the wrong people. Or this content is really well suited for 30% of your target audience. And so when you start to build that list and then really make sense of it, you realize that, okay, now that I have this list, I'm going to break it into 3 groups and I'm going to create a content strategy that is appropriate for each of the groups, which will then inform your frequency, the type of content, what is the lead magnet or the offer, all of that. And so much of that comes directly out of the brand strategy, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So Alana has a heck of a question in there. So quite a bit in there. So it sounds like Alana is sending out sort of a series of newsletters. She's on number 20 of 40. So that represents to me a content strategy that is likely, well formed. It's sort of progressive and is introducing additional content as you go. And so then sort of some questions here on, am I sending too much? Should I be adding checklists? All these sort of things. So much of this, it depends on, the devil's always in the details, right? So any guidelines on how long my content should be, it can feel like I'm writing an ebook each time. So generally for this type of content, I would say short content that is going to be able to be consumed in 5 to 10 minutes max. If there's longer content, that should be something that they should opt in to get by paying for, or doing some conversion that is of value to you. So I would say keep the majority of the most valuable content behind the paywall. And then you also talk about, you also usually want to include a worksheet or a checklist, but you've been told not to do that too often, or your audience will become too used to freebies, possibly. But if they're converting well and they're getting people to sign up or to do an action, then maybe it's a good idea. But these checklists might be, you might have, for example, a list of 20 things to consider before you do XYZ, and you're going to provide the first 6 on the checklist, but the other 14 are held back. So yeah, do checklists, but don't provide the whole checklist. So those are types of things. And in terms of metrics, metrics is how many people did you reach? How many people opened it? How many people went to the landing page? How many people actually clicked on the conversion to download? So we cover quite a bit of the KPI metrics within our courses as well. Megan, feel free to add if you have anything else there.
Yeah, just with the metrics, kind of some key things that tend to be the most effective storytelling in terms of like how your email health is actually doing is going to be things like your bounce rate. So that will tell you if your opt-in forms are being spammed by bots or people who don't necessarily actually want the emails and they just want the offer, whatever it is. So that just basically tells you how many emails are not landing in somebody's inbox. Another one is going to be your open rate. So that's how many people that received your email actually opened it. And then the inverse of that is going to be your click rate. So how many people actually clicked on the link in the email. So if your open rate is really, really high, that means that your subject line or the offer that you have in the subject line, the headline is really great. That's good messaging. But if the click rate is substantially low, that means that the messaging between the subject line and the actual body of the email doesn't line up, or there's too much information in the email and they actually didn't get to the call to action. Whereas if it's the inverse, if the open rate is really low and the click rate is really high, that just means that the actual offer is really good. Your messaging in the subject line just might need a little bit of work. So those are kind of some of the key things to look for your email health in general. That just tells you a little bit more about the story of what people are looking at.
The buzzword there is optimizing your email campaigns, right? Because it could be many different parts that are not performing well, or I think you articulated that really well, Megan. What do you think of Shelley's question? When designing the email marketing list, should they be moved from awareness list to consideration list to conversion list? So here, Shelley's asking about, should she be creating lists or segmenting them based on the buying stage or the pipeline?
So there's I'm glad that you brought up that terminology, the pipeline and the buying stage, because those are kind of two separate things. So when we're talking about email list segmentation, so customer list segmentation, organization, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on as well. But the important thing to remember is that we want to stay organized for our own benefit, right? So how it makes most sense to you. One of the things to consider and keep in mind is that generally organizing your email campaigns and your lists and your automations is best by function. So like if you go to a trade show, for example, and you want to send out email follow-ups to everyone who signed up for the draw, for example, you want to have a specific list for that section. Now there's a second function in most email marketing platforms or CRMs, customer relationship management platforms, called sales pipelines. And that allows you to kind of filter through individual contacts in a more sales focused way. So that's where we would maybe look at the awareness, consideration, conversion phases, where you can set up an actual visual pipeline of this person from this particular email list is in the consideration phase, right? So it's kind of two separate sides of things. The email marketing side is we want to understand that the person who came in from this particular place is going to want different information than somebody who came in from a different place, right? So they're going to want maybe emails about websites versus emails about brands, right? So that's where we separate those two things and we have that division, but the pipelines are going to be more of a sales function. Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, Megan, there's a couple of questions that I'm answering about tools. We're talking about the strategy, but at some point you have to use the software. You might be using MailChimp or Constant Contact. We have our own business app that Megan will talk about later that sort of unifies a lot of this together, your analytics, your social media, your email marketing, your text message marketing. The tools can be a part that's quite overwhelming. And there was another question, which ones do we support? We're familiar with lots. We can't support them all because there's just so much variation. So we've chosen a business app that has sort of many tools all in one dashboard. But for you as a small, medium business, you can leverage our tools or you can choose MailChimp or whatever. But you'll want to spend a good amount of time choosing the right tools. And if you can, try to choose an all-in-one tool that brings everything together under one roof. That makes it a lot easier for most small, medium businesses. But what else would you say about the toolkit side of things?
The toolkit side of things is stressful because when you start to look into it, you realize that what you need are tech stacks. So you need things for your email marketing and for your sales and for booking meetings and for your analytics. And it all becomes a lot very, very quickly. And so like Ryan had said, things kind of, you want something that's all in one and is scalable so you can grow with it. MailChimp is a good example of this, and not to knock anyone who's using MailChimp. It's a great program, especially for small businesses. It's focused on the email marketing side of things, not so much the CRM sales side of things. But MailChimp is a good example that it doesn't necessarily support growth really, really well. Another example is HubSpot. HubSpot is really great for when you are already in that growth phase and really expanding quickly. It's not very good for that really small business where you have that more structured email list. You don't have a lot of contacts coming in and out a lot of the time. So the most important thing is to understand what you actually are needing, right? And how you establish that is by identifying how you want to connect with your audiences. What are the things that you want to accomplish with your email marketing? And that will tell you a lot about what you actually do need in terms of technology. Some of the key things that you're always going to need, no matter who you are and what your business is, how big it is going to be organization, being able to organize your lists, being able to send things to appropriate contacts with relevant and accurate information. Following legislation, so CASL laws, Ryan referred to it as CAN-SPAM, but basically what it is there's legislation that was introduced in Canada, I think in 2014, that basically said, okay, we have to crack down on all of the email spam that's going on and people are getting exhausted and ripped off by all the spam that's coming into their inboxes. And it's kind of just inundating people to the point where they limit their decision-making capabilities because there's just too much information. So the Canadian government said, all right, we're going to put a stop to this. We have to make sure that people are actually consenting to the information that they're receiving. So in Canada, you can only send emails to people who are either existing clientele, previous clientele, or people who have opted in specifically to receive marketing information. So whenever you're signing up for an email list or something like that, you'll see a little checkbox that says, I consent to receiving, or please send me emails regarding the email or getting marketing information coming from this organization, that kind of thing. And there will always have to be a little button at the bottom that says unsubscribe. And one of the biggest complaints that I've heard is people talking about how difficult it is to unsubscribe because a lot of companies will want you to go through, 4 or 5 steps to unsubscribe. And I can absolutely understand the frustration with that. The goal of these platforms is to make that part easier so that it's automatically embedded within every single marketing email that you send out. So what we're trying to achieve by using tools like this is so that you follow the law. First of all, you're not allowed to opt out of that. And second of all, so it makes it easier for you to understand where your email health is and to keep things organized as you go as well. Amy, I see you popped on camera there. Please jump in and share.
Yeah, I was just well, thank you, Megan, for noting that piece about why it's important to use one of these email platforms. It really is about the compliance piece. I've seen in the chat and in some of the questions that some people are still using Outlook or their email server to send emails to a list. And while you can say something about reply back to me to opt out, it's far easier to manage your email marketing communications using one of these tools. And if you're a small business, I would say Constant Contact or MailChimp are maybe two of the easier platforms. Things like HubSpot or Salesforce have the customer relationship management piece, the sales side built into them, which is really helpful, as Megan mentioned, if you're going to grow your business. But if you are just starting out, I think those are both good tool options to test out. I've used both of them and have had good success with them. And I think the nice thing about both of them is we're getting a little technical here, but they have what's called an API or something that can plug into your other tech platforms like your sales systems or your website. And I think that's an important, like, helpful piece to have. Yeah.
Yeah. And that just kind of brings back to that whole idea of the all-in-one platform where we want to limit the number of subscriptions that we're using, right? We don't want to have something for paying for something for our social media and for our email and for our sales CRM and for the forms that we have on our website. And for, we have all of these technologies available, but we want to try and condense them. So what you're talking about, Amy, that API, that integration between your website and this to streamline and create efficiencies that way as well.
Yeah, and just a note on that, because there's some questions on, are these free or paid? Most of them will have a free plan that's limited, and then you'll hit a threshold and then you'll want to upload or upgrade to the first, small business plan, $13 a month, $40 a month, depends on the platform. What we find is if you're using a lot of the free plans and you're probably leveraging 3, 4, or 5 different softwares and it gets unruly. And then if you're using that many tools, that's when it's a good idea to opt towards one of those unified dashboards where it brings it all together. Usually when you're using a software tool it has email marketing, it has analytics, it has social media, it has AI assistance, all of that. Those typically have a monthly fee for service is what it would be. And then there's lots of different plans. So if you're just sort of experimenting and using multiple tools, you can probably get away with free. And then the hassle is that you're managing all these different tools. So it's always a bit of a trade-off. And so it'll be very dependent on kind of what you want to achieve. Megan, just a time check. So you're aware we're at 11:30. So we're
yes, absolutely. So I want to touch on staying organized next, because this is something that could get out of hand very, very quickly. And I started my marketing career actually in email marketing. And this is something that was part of the bane of my existence when I was learning how to use all of these tools and learning the strategy and all of this, was how to stay organized with a very chaotic platform structure, right? And so some of the things that I've learned through my personal aggravations and through the Digital Marketing Training Academy as well is staying organized in email marketing is really important. So 2 things that you will understand or the kind of common language are lists and tags. So there's always going to be kind of 2 areas to segment your customer base. One through lists, so creating unified lists of people, and one through tags. So you can kind of subsect lists through your tags. What you want to do is kind of think about it like a little bit of a Russian nesting doll situation, where we have kind of our list of our pool of people, and then we bring those into kind of smaller sections, right? So we want to try and organize people that way so that we are able to effectively give them information, give them information that you are providing. And I'm seeing some smiles and stuff, so I want to make sure that I'm not
No,
Not
we're
really.
joking about being organized.
Okay,
Megan, I
perfect.
know you're very organized. I organize myself via my calendar, but I think this is the overwhelming part about email marketing and all of this stuff is there's lots of details. So we actually do cover a good amount of that in our training academy. I'm realizing now we don't make that as a good focus, but I think you're right to highlight the idea about having a plan and being organized and filing your stuff properly. So, anyways, that's just what we're laughing about in the background.
Okay, perfect.
Luna
One of
is a hot lava mess.
Yeah. Part of being able to effectively email market is using our automations. And we can't do that if we aren't effectively organized with our lists and tags. So email automations, this is getting into the very technical side of things, setting up conditions and rules for how to automatically send emails to people. The reason why this is important is because very often the people that we're working with here are ourselves included. We have very small teams, right? We're small businesses, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, where we're wearing a lot of hats, we're doing a lot of tasks, and the things that we can effectively streamline by using automations are going to make things a lot easier in the long run. So getting people to sign up for your email list, they get an automatic welcome email and you don't have to reach out to them personally, right? That kind of thing. The other part of that is, again, staying consistent and efficient with your messaging. One of the easiest ways to break trust with your audience is to not deliver on what you've promised. And one of the ways to make sure that you're delivering on what you promise through your email opt-ins is by using automations. So that's kind of one of the key things that I wanted to talk about there. Before I dive into a little bit more, I guess, content side, I wanted to look at some of the design because, like I had mentioned before, we are very visual creatures. We are not, and most people are using their phones to look through emails and things like that. Very often, I would say 80% of the time, people are looking on their mobile devices. So it's important that things stay visually diverse in order to make sure that we're able to effectively keep people engaged. We love to click buttons. Always have a button involved in your emails, right? Always have somewhere for someone to go. The trade-off of that is not too many buttons. If you have 4 calls to action, 4 different buttons, 4 links for somebody to click on, they're going to click on the first one and not come back for the other 3. So make sure that you have, if you have to have 3 calls to actions, 4 calls to actions, make sure that the most important one is the one that they click on, right? So highlight that one, make sure that it's the email, right? Or the button. So we've got, 3 different links here and then the button. So we want to make sure that we highlight the button if that's the most important thing. The other thing is that our content is not going to be too exhaustive. So there's kind of like 3 stages to content. I think this goes back to one of the first questions that was asked by Alana about how much content should I be sharing in my emails, right? You can really easily break this up into multiple different types of content, right? So our longest form content that we're going to want to be writing is going to be our blogs, right? That's going to be, the 1,200 to 2,500 word pieces, right? We want people to be on our website to be part of our conversations there, to stay within our ecosystem there. Our emails are going to be driving people to those places or giving them information there to maintain that relationship on a consistent basis. What we would want to do kind of in this exchange would be like our email would be a brief summary overview of the blog post, and then the button saying, go read the full blog post here, for example, or read the full ebook here, read the more information here, get access here, want more information, set up a one-time consultation, right? That's how we would break up the content. So it doesn't feel like we're writing a full ebook each time, but we're still making sure that the information, the content that we are offering is valuable. A couple of other things to consider is personalization. So in email marketing platforms, you won't see this in things like Outlook or Gmail, but in actual marketing platforms, you'll have something called a personalization tag. So anyone who signs up for your email list, if you're setting it up properly, it will address the person by their name, right? What this does is it allows them to feel seen and heard and recognized. Even if we don't necessarily have the time to go through and address each individual person uniquely and, say, hey, Amy, thank you so much for signing up for this email list. we don't necessarily have the time to do that, we can still help them feel seen and heard, right? So it's part of building that emotional connection and that relationship with your customer, as well as kind of structuring the messaging that you want to share, right? We want to build that real connection with our audience. Always having your calls to action. I mentioned that as well. Utilizing landing pages is a big part of that. So this is kind of separate from the emails themselves, but we obviously want our calls to action, our links, to go somewhere effective. And so that's where we would start thinking about building landing pages on our website. That's part of advertising as well. So if you want to learn more about that, we'll be talking a little bit more about that in our advertising call later on in the year. But that's just kind of the segue as to all of the things that kind of lead from this, right? We have our funnel, and it's all kind of a web, and it trickles down, obviously. So when I mentioned the conversation about our metrics, and we look at our click rates versus our open rates and things like that, this design here is going to influence your click rate, right? Our subject line is where we influence our open rates, right? So all of this kind of ties together really well. Some examples of not great emails here. We've got a logo, sure, but we've got just all text, right? There's not great visual differentiation. And so we want to try and avoid things like that. We want to have things like banners and images and logos and contact cards and headshots and, you know, buttons and all of those things, visual difference, because that's how we stay engaged. And again, if I'm looking at an entire block of text on my phone, on my emails, I'm not going to read through it. And as a marketer, I understand that, I know that. And so we want to break things up into really short, poignant statements so that people are actually going to be able to go through this. Really easy way to design is in Canva. You can design your banners and things like that in Canva. And all of your email marketing platforms are going to have design embedded in there. So you can add in your buttons and have different formats and things like that built in there. So it's really important to stay on top of that. All right, I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of some pro tips here for design. One is balancing text and media. Want visual difference, but we don't want it too text heavy. We don't want it too banner heavy, because that just feels a little bit too flashy and not actually connecting with our audience. Incorporating embedded video. This is a really great way to build a little bit more of a connection and provide a little bit more value. We're able to get a little bit more in with a video than with our text, right? People want to watch a video over reading an email. So you can do this through embedding a video link through Vimeo, YouTube, Loom. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do that depending on how you want to. But it's a really great way to engage people. Buttons and calls to action, going to landing pages, actually having somebody action something, do something, providing them a way to complete that phase of awareness to opt in to conversion, or to consideration to conversion, right? We want them to actually go through that. Personalization and emojis, have fun with it. Don't take yourself too seriously, right? Add in emojis. I very often will add emojis into the subject line as well, so that people feel a little bit more comfortable and welcomed. It's not a stodgy environment, right? We want to welcome people in. We'll save that for later for the contract negotiations, right? We want to be welcoming and warm and open. Campaigns versus sequences versus long-term nurture. So these are kind of three different conversations around the types of email marketing that we can do. So campaigns would be something like your one-offs, or like your short-term sales, short-term hype kind of emails, where you have like, we have something coming soon, and then you have a sale, and then it's kind of done within a few days, right? Where we have that really short-term push. A sequence would be something where it's like a formatted automation, where somebody signs up for something, and then within 2 days they get this email, and then within another week they get this email, and then 4 days later then they get one final email, and then they're done. Right? So our sequence is going to be kind of like that nurture for a specific purpose. Rather, our long-term nurture is going to be things like your email newsletter, right? Where it's kind of the consistent long-term drip, where they're getting something from you once a month, every couple of weeks, that kind of thing. Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to share with you, there's a good amount of questions about the tool and the business app that we have as well. So just so you're aware, I've shared the link, which is going to be, the QR code on the last screen. And so maybe just tie in a little bit. We're talking a lot about strategy, but of course the strategy has to be implemented by the tools, the software as well. Just a lot of questions about that currently.
Mm-hmm. So a couple ways for implementation. With the digital marketing dashboard, the Business App Pro that we operate, we have a built-in AI system as well. So content generation through AI. It's powered by OpenAI, the same platform as ChatGPT. What we want to stress with that is this goes back to our brand, right? Effectively implementing how you prompt will impact how you actually implement, right? And the content that you're sharing with your audience. So that's part of it. The second part of it is that streamlining, right? Wanting to be efficient and effective with your time. So I won't spend too much time on that because we'll talk about ChatGPT and AI in our next couple sessions as well. So over the next couple months, we'll be talking a lot about AI implementation. So definitely sign up for those conversations. But the platform that we are talking about, and I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit here so that I can showcase our kind of the full scope here. So what we're doing with this is we're pulling in kind of all of the areas that we see kind of generally need to be integrated in together. And the key part of that we're talking about today is the email marketing, right? So we can take forms and embed them onto the website that directly connect to the email marketing, which then we can build our automation software around, right? We have the analytics so we can take a look at how our email campaigns are doing. We have that connected to the CRM so that once somebody clicks on the link in the email, then they go on to the next stage of the sales pipeline, for example. So all of these things are really important for you to understand as a marketer or a business owner, where you can kind of start to see the network of how all of this stuff is connected. Managing the actual content itself, it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of finessing and working with some of these tools to really fully understand how you want to share that message with your audience and with your clients, and build what kind of lists that you want to build and that kind of thing. Did I kind of cover that very briefly? Ryan, what else would you like to add in here as well?
I guess I think what a lot of people are struggling with is, okay, there's the strategy and, I need to learn how this works so that I can implement it. I think that part is clear. And then it's really a little bit of overwhelm is choosing the tool. Should it be MailChimp? Should it be Constant Contact? Should I be posting to a landing page? Then, all of this sort of stuff. And so what I've been sharing there is, of course, we have our offer there. If anyone's interested in any of these tools or our training academy, just reach out to us. We'll jump on a quick call. There's no fee for that. You may choose to go with us or not, but there's lots of options out there through us and other providers. And I think it is important to make sure that you're using the right tools and that you have some amount of base knowledge learning, so that you have the knowledge plus the tools allows you to execute properly. So just know that we're here to support you, and that's one of our promises to BusinessLink. We'll take care of you as well and make sure you're set up with the right tools.
One of the really important things to consider as well is that you want this to be effective for you. You want this to be able to action what you actually need. Very often, some of the complaints, the conversations that I've heard about, any and all dashboards really across the internet is, how can I customize this so that it's actually going to be what I need? How can I do this one particular thing that's unique to me and me alone? How do I get around that, right? And so that leads into that kind of tech stack confusion of, okay, well, I need this particular thing, but the system that I'm using doesn't have that. So I have to go out and find another software to fill that gap. And so that's kind of a big thing that we're trying to work around with the conversations that we're having today, the education of how do you actually decide what you need from the beginning, giving you the tools and the information to be able to action things on your own, but then also seeing that, okay, well, we can give you all of that information, but if there's not something on the market that's available to you, then that's not helpful, right? So that's kind of where we're trying to fill the gap there, is making sure that it's customizable to you and what you actually need as well. So there's all of these things. That doesn't mean that you need to action all of those things if that's not going to be what you need. Yeah, Amy, go ahead.
Well, just gonna jump in and ask if, yeah, exactly. There are any other questions? I did see a couple come up along the way, and I just didn't want to interrupt you. And I know Ryan answered a couple of them briefly. I thought one that was kind of interesting was about the jargon that comes up around lists versus tags. And I thought maybe if I offered even an example from Business Link from our marketing, it might help with understanding what segments are in email marketing and why they could be important for your business. So, kind of an example from today is that some of you may have joined us or heard about this webinar in a different way. For those of you who may have received an email from Business Link advertising the webinar, you would be a subscriber. You might have come in to be a subscriber from joining a previous webinar. You may have signed up on our website, or maybe you came to an event in person and we had you subscribe that way. There could be a few different methods, and those could be distinct lists, or they could be different tags that you use in your email CRM. And that help kind of categorize your clients. And kind of giving a further example, let's say for everyone joining today, you are all email subscribers for Business Link. We know from today that you've taken this webinar on email marketing, so we can put a tag in our list that you're interested in digital marketing or email marketing. And we know then that we might be able to send you more information, perhaps about our digital marketing program or other webinars that are coming up that are marketing related. So that's like one example of why it's important to segment your lists and how you can use information of activity to help offer more products or information to your email list.
One of the key things that I just kind of want to add in there as well is that while it's really important for you to be able to kind of understand how you're segmenting things, it's also important for your email health. If you are providing just blanket information to all of your email subscribers, it's not going to be super relevant to any of them, right? Because it's too broad, it's too vague. Whereas if you have email lists that are segmented, for example, like with 910, we've got a list for our website clients and one for our branding clients, right? I'm not going to be sending a ton of irrelevant website jargon information to my brand clients because that's not what they need, right? So if you're trying to break up your list that way, it helps with the amount of unsubscribes that you get, and that impact how you're perceived with spam and things like that. So it's really important that way. It just helps the information that you're saying or sharing stay relevant with your audience in that way as well. Any other big questions?
I might offer a comment for those on the webinar today, just from, evaluation of our own marketing channels. Sometimes email marketing, like we talked about at the beginning, can be kind of intimidating because many of us are familiar from our own personal marketing using social media channels such as Instagram or TikTok or Facebook. But you may not have really dabbled in and you're not really sure about email marketing. But the reason it's an important channel is because it really invites you into somebody's inbox. And yes, while you may be competing with a lot of other emails in there, it's a little bit more of a personal space where people are spending a little bit more time looking at content. And it's a little bit bigger format than social media. So it offers you uninterrupted space to offer a really distinct message to your customers. So I think it's a really valuable tool in your marketing channels and something worth pursuing. Yeah.
I really like that you made that comment about the personal experience, right? It's a little bit more of an intimate relationship when you're in somebody's inbox, and that really does help to start build that customer relationship and actually have a real conversation with somebody. Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, we didn't cover much of it on this call, but I know we do lots of this in our content in our training academy. Content strategy. I always like to remind people that Another another type of long form content that we focus on is blog writing. It's really good for search engine optimization. But if you're developing a blog content, that content can be repurposed typically and then double leveraged for your email marketing. And then that content typically can be chunked up into much more social media content. So the investment in the long form content typically makes it dual or triple use. So, and once you start developing that content strategy, you'll then find that you can activate it, to use a bit of a buzzword, maybe across email marketing, across different social media platforms, across your blog. And so you might say this blog article has been reformatted to in this way for this specific target audience over on email marketing, but then we've reformatted it slightly over here for LinkedIn with a bit more of a professional tone, and then we've made it a little bit more amusing and accessible over here on our TikTok or our Instagram. So I think really important to think about how flexible your content ultimately can be if you really approach it properly.
Yeah. Somebody asks, can you get paid for the blog, charge a fee? Typically, you won't want to do that necessarily if you're putting it up on your website, unless it's like, chapters to a book or something like that. The reason being is because we're wanting to offer value to our clients, to our audiences. Part of that is through search engine optimization. Like Ryan said, it does help a lot with how you show up on the search engine results page, being able to add more content to your website. It also does help establish you as an expert, as an authority in the industry, and helps your clients trust you, your audience trust you a little bit more so that they actually do convert into a sale or
If you are an authority, this is an anonymous question. Can you get paid for your blog? I'd say 99% of the time, no, you will not get paid for your blog. If you are one of the few that is creating such great content, it's so valuable, you've accumulated a lot of subscribers, then you can move over to a tool like Substack, where you can then publish your content behind a paywall, where people can access it through a subscription model. A lot of journalists will do this, or content creators. Once you're really good at that, you can monetize it. But for most of the people, most of the time, you're not monetizing your content in that way, at least for small businesses.
If your content is your primary product, then yes. But if you
Yes.
are using it as a marketing tool, then no. So that's kind of like the biggest difference there. I just want to show what's kind of coming up in the next little bit here. We have July, understanding artificial intelligence, kind of how to use what it is, the different tools that are available out there, good prompting, that kind of thing. And then we'll take a break in August for a little bit of a summer vacation. And then in September, we'll be back with ChatGPT. So we'll talk a little bit about how to actually actively use this particular tool, the different settings that are available, how to set up custom GPTs and things like that. And then in October, we'll jump into design. So we'll talk a little bit more about kind of some design best practices and how to activate Canva in a more effective way, and some best practices there. This will also be transferable to other design platforms. I think I saw a comment on there, Canva versus Adobe. Both platforms are great. Canva is kind of the prominent one on the market right now, but this particular topic will cover design best practices that will be effective on both platforms. So, all right. I think that's it. Just wanted to bring up this guy here so that if you're interested in a little bit more of our digital marketing platforms, feel free to scan the QR code. And yeah, that's all. I'll stop talking now.
Sorry, Megan. Thank you for that. And thank you both for all the information today. That was really great. I'd also offer to those who are listening today, if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed today and really just starting out with your digital marketing, there's an opportunity for you to visit our website, businesslink.ca, and sign up for our digital marketing program. And our business strategists would be happy to help you. Take a look at our other webinars that are coming up. Certainly, I can see already for 910's next webinar on AI, the registration's really high for that one because it's really interesting and very topical. So We'd love to see you again soon. I think that's coming up in a couple weeks here. And yeah, with that being said, feel free to scan our QR code to subscribe to our newsletter and updates. And then we're going to send out the full recording for the webinar today, so you get that shortly. And yeah, we hope to see you soon at our next webinar. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. And yeah, take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Amy, Linda, the rest of the team at Business Link. You're great.
Thank you. Oh, and I forgot to add, there's a survey that's coming out. So an opportunity for you to give us feedback on this webinar. So thank you very much for that. Okay, everyone, take care. Have a great day.
You.